Everybody's running to the waiver wire to get that next player to help them set their lineup this week, or get that stash player in hopes that they can cash in on that lottery ticket to go boom later in a season and have a game-winning asset on their fantasy team. Today we're looking at 10 wide receivers off the waiver wire that could help you instantly or down the line in fantasy football. Guys you can play the matchups with down the road, or guys that you can put in your lineup right now. But before we do this, you need to click that subscribe button. Give it a good tap with the finger on your phone. Click it with your mouse, whatever you need to do, because we're doing deep dives on these lesser-known players all week long. We're helping you set those lineups. We're helping you find guys off waivers. We're helping you win your league. And that's what we do all year long here. So hit that button. Stop missing out. Here are 10 players, though. Tank Dell again. We talked about him last week. We've talked about him quite a bit. And you know what? I think I got to get a little bit more assertive right now, because he does not need to be on waivers. He needs to be off waivers. He needs to be rostered. He's a guy we've been advocating to be picked up. And now he went off again. Back-to-back 20-point weeks, 25 points to be exact last week. In the last two games, he ran 71 routes, 82.6 route participation rate, had a 23.6% target share. Good volume here. Good workload. The Texans are pushing the ball downfield, something that was not predicted by really anybody. They expect C.J. Stroud to start off slow, considering the coaching staff and everything, and him being a rookie. But things are on fire here in Houston. Whether they're up, whether they're down, they're throwing the football. He's wide receiver 7 in PPR in the last 2 weeks. Has been on fire lately. I expect these wide receivers on the Texans to just go off and on like fireworks. Just pop off one week, pop off the next, goes the other one, and pop off the next week goes the third one. Robert Woods, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell, I think they're all going to be taking turns. I think this offense spreads it around good. I think we got volume here. I think all 3 wide receivers can really compete at the NFL level and do good things. We know Robert Woods can. Tank Dell's shown it. Nico Collins can do his thing as well. I think we got a good trio here that people are overlooking, and Tank Dell should not be on waivers. Robert Woods is another guy you need to look at too, and everybody's been looking at Nico Collins. Next, Josh Downs. A lot of people have been talking about him in the comments section in some of my videos, wanting me to talk about him, and he's been looking good. The volume has been flowing his way, and he has a lot of upside, and he had good numbers coming out of college, early breakout age. The tape doesn't lie. He plays bigger than his size, can be used in the slot. We're seeing that in the numbers. Also, volume. Last week, 12 targets, 28.6% target share, something you want from your wide receivers. 41 routes ran, 83.7 route participation rate. Getting a lot of volume, getting a lot of work on the field. That's a good thing to see in a game against Baltimore, where that game script went off the chain and points were starting to be flowing. Both teams moving the ball a little bit. 72 air yards, though. He's getting a lot of short targets, but that's really part of the game you would expect him to play, though. Playing out of the slot, creating separation, using nuance. Very good ball player here, good hands. Very dependable. He's a very dependable wide receiver, and I like Josh Downs. I think he's going to be a good get for the long term, and he's going to have some good weeks this season. Next, we're looking at Romeo Dowles. 12 targets, 27.9% target share last week. Finally hit for us. He finally did something. 43 routes, 86% route participation rate, 166 air yards. So they were targeting him deep in this contest against the Saints. They're firing it downfield. Christian Watson's going to eventually be back. We're going to have a trio of wide receivers here. Jordan Love is on the upswing. He had 18.3 fantasy points this week. The thing is, if they're firing the ball downfield, I think Dubs is going to have some games where he's productive. And he's in an offense here where any one of these wide receivers can go off. And the thing about this is going to be dependent on matchup and the defense going up against them. Next, Joshua Palmer. Once Mike Williams was out of the lineup, he was in an all snaps with Keenan Allen running routes. That's a good thing to see for him. Also, when Mike Williams is out, he averages almost 13 points per game, PPR, 12.9 to be exact, but the volume goes his way. We see an upswing in production when Williams is out. For Josh Palmer, something to look at. Quinton Johnson is another wide receiver we're looking at as well, but Josh Palmer is to get off waivers if you need production. Now, speaking of Quinton Johnson, he's got a lot of upside. He's a wide receiver you want for the long haul. He's a guy you want for multiple weeks to see what happens. He's a lottery ticket. There's a lot of upside. Very productive from TCU from a market share standpoint. Broke out as a freshman in 2020. He posted a 20% market share or higher in every single season. Had a very productive year at TCU. Not the most nuanced wide receiver, not the greatest separator, not the greatest hands catcher, but he does have some things in his game where he could be a good producer on the boundary for the Chargers, and you just got to pick him up as a lottery ticket to see what happens. Next, we're looking at Alec Pierce. And the thing about him is he's a deep ball guy. And he's got that Will Fuller effect to him where there's going to be a lot of games where he does not do anything. And then there's going to be some matchups where the ball's flying in the air. He's going to come down with a few of those. 161 air yards last week. He had some games like this last year where he blew off because of the deep threat abilities. 46 routes ran, 93.9% route participation rate, 7 targets, 16.7% target share. Again, he's a deep ball specialist, a guy who's going to get air yards. There's going to be some contests that allows him to be fantasy relevant, and then there's going to be a lot of bust weeks. But when you're chasing the air yards, you're chasing the targets, you're going to see that Alec Pierce is going to have some moments throughout the season. He did last year. He'll have a couple games this year, play the matchups. Probably a better DFS piece for DraftKings and FanDuel than redraft because you're not going to know when to start him unless you're really, really, really hurting or you're in a super deep league. Next, Marvin Mims. Same factor, but he's been cashing lately. He's been cashing huge last 2 games, 218 air yards, 31 average depth of target. That's not real. That's not sustainable. 7 targets with 11.1 target share, 24% snap share, 8 routes ran, 4 routes per game in the last 2 games, 21% route participation rate, but wide receiver 13. He's been cashing though. And we said this in the offseason. He's deep ball city. Brings in 1 or 2 of those and you got a big week. 60-yard catch plus a point for the catch. Do that twice. You got some production. We've seen that. Catch it in the end zone. You'll see that. He's going to have off and on games until he gets more workload. And he's going to be a guy that you're just going to have to pray that either gets more volume or starts getting some catches in the end zone. But Marvin Mims is definitely on the upswing. Next, Jacoby Meyers. And he is a very dependable wide receiver. Should be rostered in all leagues. Ran 41 routes yesterday, 83.7% route participation rate, 12 targets with a 27.9% target share and 154 air yards. He started off very hot week 1, then had the injury, then came back. Sunday night against Pittsburgh was getting volume, getting targets. Very dependable wide receiver. Good opportunity here. He's going to have some games where he just goes off, catches some touchdowns, racks up yards and catches. Because he's getting this volume. We're going to see this all year as long as he's healthy and on the field. Speaking of the Will Fuller effect, DJ Chark is a deep ball specialist you want to look at because he's seeing volume right now. 93% snap share, 11 targets on Sunday, 19.3% target share, ran 62 routes, 96.9% route participation rate. So he's on the field running a lot of routes. He's getting opportunities through targets. The air yards were coming at him deep, and that's something you want out of your wide receivers. Not every game for the Panthers is going to look like this, though. They're not going to be able to sling it like this. But again, he's a gamble for your lineup because if he brings in a couple of these deep targets, you know he's going to be in the money. Next, Jameson Williams, same thing. Same thing. In a few weeks, he's going to be back. He's going to be a deep ball guy. He's going to have that Will Fuller effect where you're going to have that chart of production where nothing happens. Spike week, nothing, spike week, nothing. And you're going to want to capitalize on those spike weeks, play the matchups, and hope for the best. And then another thing you want to take note on is there's going to be a ramp-up period the week prior, 2 weeks prior, everyone talking about getting him off waivers. If you have room, if it's even possible, it may not be possible, if you get him now and stash him, maybe you got a trade piece a couple weeks from now. You package him up with another player with value and just pay up for another player you want. Maybe you can do that, or maybe see if he can cash in for you in a few games because we know the Detroit Lions are throwing the football downfield. They're tossing it 34 times a game. They're slinging it downfield. Amon-Ra St. Brown's getting targets. This team is throwing it to Josh Reynolds a lot. They would much like to see Jameson Williams out there stretching the field. allowing the other wide receivers to work underneath. We could be seeing some volume his way, but I imagine there's going to be deep targets here and there. If he brings one in, it's a big game. If he doesn't, it's a bust game. Boom bust wide receiver, but we're going to see if he can tap into that upside more often than not here soon. But when it comes to fantasy value on the trade market, you might have something here on the free if you plan to get him soon, this week, next week, or sometime down the line. But those are 10 wide receivers that we're looking at this week off the waiver wire. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button on the way out, and I'll catch you on the next video.